Hey everybody, he's back. He is back. We're like Grady and Fred Sanford. It's the pregame show and HBCU game day. My man Neely, fresh off of pro day at Jackson State. Neely, what'd you run into 40 yesterday, man?
I ran a. I guess the audio went out when I said my time. I have to get you the video.
Let's see. When Chuck ran, Coach Sanders said he would not offer him a three-piece spicy. Did you pick up any offers yesterday?
I did not pick up any offers. I picked up one offer to go back inside. Just don't try it.
All right, we'll get more on Pro Day in a second. But first, let's reverse course back to the weekend. JSU women's basketball, Tamika Reed and the squad. You were at the game, Neely. They were up 10 late. I did not want to get my hopes up, but at that point, I kind of felt like, oh my God, they're going to win this game. Unfortunately, they were not able to withstand the LSU comeback. So just first, being in the arena, what were your thoughts on the game?
It felt like a home game. It felt like the AAC for moments, which is the Lee Williams Athletic and Assembly Center on Jack State's campus. JSU's fan base traveled immensely for that game. There were sections of just nothing but JSU supporters, so they were loud. Segment of the Sonic Boom was there. They brought in a couple of J sets. The cheerleaders and the Tiger, Sunday the Tiger, were doing their thing. So there were moments where that crowd, the crescendo of the JSU fan base, silenced, the LSU fan base, which is hard to do in a Pete Maravich Center. But it happened that night. It was energetic. A lot of folks from JSU, from the athletic department, from staff, faculty, alumni, friends, tried to take over that building.
Well, that's ironic because on TV it felt the other way. It felt like it was literally, because it was an LSU home game. They were on their campus. The announcers, or at least the color commentator, was definitely strong in the LSU wheelhouse. I could hear Jackson State through the TV, but just sitting at home watching, I just felt like, man, these girls are against really stacked odds here. But it's interesting to hear you say that being there in person, that it was a little more balanced and equaled out.
Yeah, I don't think the number in the crowd was balanced at all. I think the vocals in the crowd was balanced. We can be a little louder, we can be a little more energetic, and we brought the noise. One of the challenges was that we didn't get to sit right behind the Lady Tigers bench. Ohio State's fan base gobbled up those tickets, and we're still sitting there, for the next game. So we were kind of dispersed all around. But the energy was there. The Lady Tigers, when a big play would happen, this is probably when TV would go to commercial, they would point to one of the sections that our fan base was in and get pumped up. And, Tyler, you talked about the being up 10, but it was the down 15 plus that we battled back from, that was really the story of what Tamika Reed has put together with her depth and her coaching ability to be in that environment. When you got into late second quarter, people were like, well, this is over. They're going to come out in the third quarter and really run away with it. And the complete opposite thing happened. The Lady Tigers not only got back in the game, they got the lead.
Yeah, I think down 17 was the max lead at one point there. It really did seem like they were going to run away with it midway through that second quarter. Real quickly, curious, who were the neutral fans going for? Like who were the Ohio State fans cheering for during the game?
I can't say that they were really cheering, but they were doing a lot of head nodding and a lot of, you clearly, if you're Ohio State, you want the underdog to win because you believe that will be your easier matchup to move forward. But they were watching Jackson State's Lady Tigers play, and they didn't want that smoke either because you could just see the tenacity of that team and the can't quit and the don't quit that team has. So I can't say that Ohio State was cheering for one or the other, but they were certainly doing some note-taking and well aware of who they might be facing.
Neely, Coach Reed, Tamika Reed, improved this year's roster from last year's roster. It was elevated with the amount of players and their talent level. If she can continue that trend, now she's going to lose, a big piece in Amisha Williams-Holiday, and she loses Rogan as well, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Those two will be hard to replace. But she talked about the transfer portal evening the playing field. If she can find a way to elevate this roster even another notch for next season, I don't see why they couldn't win an NCAA game as close as they were this year.
Yeah, I think she's been a little coy. I think she's keeping her cards close to the vest. She's already rebuilt a better team. Already are better than we were this year. 6'3" and above players on the floor at the same time. You had 2 dandy dozen players who were on the bench this year because they're freshmen and sophomores playing behind Amisha and Deja. They'll be starting. So I think from a point production standpoint, from a defensive dominance, instead of just totally relying on Amisha's shot blocking and rebounding, now you got 3 shot blockers and rebounders out there. I expect the Lady Tigers to be more dominant this next coming season than were this. Now, it's hard to go undefeated, Chuck. I called you Chuck. It's hard to go undefeated, Tolly. What an insult. I call Tolly Chuck. It's hard to go.
Not an insult. Not an insult.
No, I'm saying this is insult. It's hard to go undefeated, in any stretch of the imagination. So just because you're a better team doesn't mean we're not going to lose a game. But I do expect us to have easier runs, be able to battle other people's runs. And get this, Tolly, if we can have the kind of success in the conference that we had 2 years in a row, we're probably going to get higher than the 14 seed, and you're probably going to open the door if someone else in the SWAC is just as competitive, even though they don't win the conference tournament. Now you're not like the real Power Fives. You got multiple teams invited. Without them having to do that play-in game. So it's going to be interesting next year. We'll be a better team.
I like the smoke. And it wasn't real smoke. It was playful smoke from where I sat. But between Coach Kim Mulkey and Coach Tamika Reed, with Coach Mulkey, singing Jim Croce and Beyonce after the game, and I missed this during the week, but Coach Reed saying, "Hey, Kim Mulkey's got it coming." But I loved all of that. I thought it was great for women's basketball. I thought it was great for even elevating the Jackson State program outside of familiar eyeballs.
I agree with you. You see a lot of that bravado in men's sports all the time, and it sells tickets, and it gets people's attention, and it builds hype for the game. Don King knows how to do it better than anybody. You get that pre-hype fight and that bulletin board material, as Coach Kim Mulkey called it. I think both ladies were, in their rights to do it and motivating their teams. But I'm also just as certain that Tamika Reed wanted the last word like Coach Mulkey got. She won the game, so hats off to him. And going into the game, Coach Reed, on the pregame show and shared content with HBCU Game Day, she said we're the underdogs. We're not only 14 seed, we're going on the road and playing in their home gym. The odds are stacked against us. So for us to come back from that deficit to then restore to a lead, that's a 25-point swing. And to be leading the game with about 4 or 5 minutes left, what a testament to the roster she's built, and what a great recruitment tool for all HBCUs. Because why would you go to a Power 5 and sit on the bench when you can go to an HBCU and make this kind of run and have this kind of programmatic impact?
Neely, that's one thing I was thinking. I felt like there was a young lady sitting at home, maybe he's on the bubble, thinking about transferring, thinking about where they're going to commit, and saw that Jackson State game and said, man, I could have been the difference. Like, I could have been the extra rebound, steal, breaking the full court press, like to take this team over the top.
You mentioned Ohio State. Where I was sitting, I was pretty close to their team as they watched this game. And that's what I was looking for in those young ladies' faces. I'm looking over there at a 6'3", 6'2" player that didn't see the floor for Ohio State. And she's watching what Jackson State is doing and thinking, man, I would have got that rebound. Man, I could have made that shot. So the recruitment tool that game was and that performance was, I don't think you can put a dollar value on it and pay it out your pocket. It was huge for HBCU sports, for the SWAC, and for Jackson State.
It was Rocky 1 to me. Like, Creed won the fight and Rocky won, but like it was the beginning of Balboa, fictional characters. But that's what it kind of felt like. I felt like the ladies took that first punch, came back, I'm not going to say they thought they had it, but there was a learning process. I would think that, man, there was still one more gear to go in that last 3 minutes. And that's not something you can explain to somebody. They got to get out there and feel it and understand, man, in that last 3 minutes, I had to dig just a little bit harder. And that's something those returning players can feel, that experience, and then know that to be a fact and put it into play, in next year's tournament if they make it back.
I am spot on with you in the Rocky and pop culture analysis. I'll take it a step further. a lot of people miss at the end of Rocky when they're in the middle of the ring and as the announcers announcing and still champion for Apollo. Apollo says, ain't gonna be no rematch. And Rocky says, now Coach Mulkey at the
Neely, you froze.
December and help with those coins.
All right, you froze a little bit. Go back to where you said no, ain't gonna be no rematch.
All right. So what's missed in that Rocky movie is at the end when you're hearing and still champion, Apollo says to Rocky, ain't gonna be no rematch. And Rocky says, don't want one. So when you hear Coach Mulkey at the end of the game saying things like, well, they're gonna have to pay Coach Reed more to get her to stay, I'm wondering if Apollo is going to step up and do a rematch in November, December, doing that non-conference schedule where you have to pay us to come down there. You know, so if you really want Coach Reed to get her coins up, let's see if LSU is really to put that in the middle of the table and come with a non-conference rematch.
Man, how easy would it be to market that game, LSU Jackson State next fall? I mean, that's a no-brainer if they want that smoke.
It is certainly a no-brainer, but we're going to see if they want to smoke. You know, everybody says they won't smoke until it's time to meet the GOAT. That is a Moneybag Yo Memphis reference, so people that go over their heads. But we're going to see if that can happen. And that's going to be one of the challenges, Tolly, for Coach Reed going forward. You know, football is trying to transition away from money games because of the physicality and the dominance of one conference or the other. But basketball is a natural part of the process, not only for the budget and getting in shape and getting in tune and ready for your non-conference schedule. You actually have a chance to win these games. So one of the challenges is going to be for Coach Reed and the program she's built is finding somebody that'll play her in December after they see what she's doing to LSU in March.
Yeah, that's the one thing. You get successful, and then they don't want to play you anymore. So it's a fine line there. We'll move on to Pro Day. One more thought on women's basketball. Coach Mulkey also talked about, as you mentioned, hey, they need to pay her, man, if they want to keep her. I think a lot of people miss that for a lot of HBCU coaches, it's not about moving up the ladder to the highest of college basketball. For some, it is. But I can say, using Coach Reed's own words and the sentiment that she displayed after the game, she's really in it for the culture. She's really in it for making history for Jackson State, is my sense.
There's no doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You heard her sincerity in saying that we're knocking on these walls and we're about to knock them down, that this is something we're doing for the broader HBCU spectrum and diaspora. Now, having said that, our athletic director, vice president, intercollegiate athletics, Ashley Robertson, he takes care of his coaches. He knows how to get contracts in front of them to reward performance and to encourage and incentivize additional performance. So I think a lot of people who are out there counting Coach Reed's coins are doing so prematurely without knowing what's truly in her current contract and what's out there for her in the future. Ashley Robertson is no slouch when it comes to dealing with coaches. You know, he did sign Deion Sanders and get him a contract. I'm sure he can make sure that Tamika Reed is at JSU for years to come as well.
Yeah, no doubt about that. The proof is in the pudding. All right, let's transition to football on this question. I posed this to some of my partners at HBCU Game Day, and I don't want it to sound crazy when I initiate this, but Jackson State has, how can I say this, Neely? They kind of got an FBS thing going where I'm wondering, like, is that part of the plan long term? Because if you look at the quality of the programs, the cornerstone programs, hiring Mo Williams now to potentially add on to that, like, I feel like they can break through that ceiling with what they have to put on the field, to market, to sustain, but they would kind of need that. And I'm not necessarily saying go FBS, but man, that support, that infrastructure, those resources, and who knows what the ceiling could be with all of that. If that rambling thought makes any sense to you.
It does make sense. And, you know, we just talked about contracts a second ago. I think that when athletic directors put things in contracts, They put them there because they're plausible. They put them there because they're possible. They put them there for incentives. And in Coach Sanders' contract is a line item for should we move up and play in football. So that lets you know that it's in the realm of possibility to happen. But I think more importantly than it actually happening is to build the infrastructure that it could happen, even if you choose not to do it. You know, you want to have some things in place that make you the best that you can possibly be. So you have options and opportunity in the future, even if you never exercise those options and do those things. So I see at Jackson State what is occurring is a Power 5 mentality. As Coach Prime says, hey, Power 5 mentality with an HBCU budget, and we're working on the budget part. But we're doing some things infrastructurally that will put us in a position that we can make some decisions that we never could have made 15, 20, 25, 30 years ago. And we'll see how it goes. But it's not just, as you pointed out, with football. It's happening in all the other sports. When you look at what we're doing in tennis, what we're doing even in soccer, in women's volleyball, the success that they're having in recruiting and building those programs and that brand, it's a phenomenal transformation taking place at 1400 Lynn Street.
Yeah, it may sound crazy at first blush just because we're so accustomed to the lane that we've been in. But when you think about all the things that you guys are doing over there, it's like, make the lane bigger. Like, you know, make it bigger. The car can handle a little better when you got a little cushion on those curves. So,
yeah.
All right.
And you know, one thing they'll tell you when you're traveling, you know, the engineering that builds the planes, they fly better when they're full. They're designed to carry that weight. So the lighter they are, the rockier the road. But when you fill them up with luggage and people, that's how they're designed to fly. So this lane widening that we'll do, barring your analogy, we want other HBCUs to come with us. We want other people in the SWAC to come with us. The more of us that are in this lane, the heavier the flight load is, the easier we're going to travel and get there.
Good point. Good point. All right, let's talk football here. Pro Day was on Monday at Jackson State. What was the final number? 23 teams, NFL teams, were represented with scouts and personnel. Deion Sanders came out on Tuesday and named specifically the teams that were not there. I kind of liked it. I really felt like it's not bravado. It's not, you know, machado. It's not all these, you know, testosterone. It's saying you can't go back. You can't say the things behind closed doors and not be willing to say them publicly if you want things to change, if you want the respect, if you want to be who you say that you want to be. First, I like the Pro Day brought everybody in from surrounding schools, including Mississippi Valley State, Alcorn State, Mississippi College. But I really loved him going out and saying, hey, you other 8 or whatever it turned out to be, where were you?
Man, Coach Prime is a numbers guy. He's a metrics guy. He does measurements. If it matters, it gets measured. And so he's always going to take role. He's always going to question things and challenge status quo. And so for those teams that were not there, he's going to call them out and have them explain to him and the world why they weren't there. But what happens bigger than that point, Tolly, is guess where they're going to be next year? They're going to make sure they send somebody, even if it's a lower ranking scout, even if they pull up an intern, they're going to make sure that when their sign-in day happens at JSU's Pro Day next year, that I bet you all 32 teams are there because you don't want to be called out. You know, he does the same thing with his players, the same thing with his coaches. He holds people accountable, and the standard is the standard. So they got called out in a healthy way. And, you know, we'll see individually what their excuses are or their reasons or justifications. But either way, I bet you next year that we have more than we had there this year because nobody wants to be called out by Deion Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, I also love that about Coach Reed. We talked about her. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind about how she felt that game was called and all the Barrett, like, she doesn't care. Like, and I think when you have that consistency of accountability with all of your leadership, that's how you get stuff done, man.
Well, you know, one of the things there that those two coaches have in common is everything they do is for the betterment and the investment in the student athlete. You know, the student athletes are not allowed to call out the referees. You know, it can hurt their NIL and their future, and they get shunned. You know, the students at the Pro Day for Coach Prime wouldn't be in a position to ask why this particular NFL team wasn't there. So they have coaches who have their backs. and put the student athletes first and say, no, it's about the kids. We're going to ask these questions because the more people that can see them on the pro day side, the better the opportunity. The more balanced and fairly a game is officiated, the better opportunity we have to compete. Rules are rules, they have to be enforced. So those two coaches are going to always be on the forefront protecting their players and calling things into question.
What was the vibe at Pro Day? We had your video, and you were kind of roving all around, but there's so many things happening at the same time. You probably felt like a kid at the state fair. What was your takeaway just from, having heard about this when it was an idea to fully seeing it executed this week?
I tell you this, man, I have personally and professionally had the opportunity to work at Power 5 Pro Days with the sports agents and see how LSU does their Pro Day, for instance. And the electricity, the excitement, and the organization of JSU's Pro Day was right on par with what you see the Power 5s do. One of the things that we're lacking on campus is a covered or indoor turf field. So, you're relying on the weather. There was an alternative plan for that for us to move, but the weather was absolutely perfect and amazing for it. You couldn't have asked for a better crowd of supporters, agents, and guests and families being there. The electricity for that to be on campus at an HBCU and to have the three HBCUs in the state, the biggest ones, Jackson State, Valley, and Alcorn, not only there with their players, but their head coaches networking and talking to scouts. You also had Mississippi College there and Millsaps there. So you had some people there that didn't get the opportunity to work together. I saw coaches from Millsaps come up to assistant coaches at Jackson State and say, hey, can we come over in the offseason and just kind of learn from you guys? Just kind of shoot the breeze and see what we can be doing better. And you saw that kind of networking happening, even amongst, again, the three HBCU coaches as they plan to do some things together to upgrade facilities and opportunities and working, remembering that, hey, now when we play each other, everybody's trying to win. But there's a bigger thing here. We want opportunity. So if we can put the spotlight on Felix Harper, Alcorn's quarterback, and it happens to be on JSU's turf field, who cares? We want Felix Harper to go to the NFL just as much as Coach McNair and Felix Harper does. So you saw that camaraderie, and you saw those players pushing each other. Competition benefits the consumer. So when one guy's running his 40, you better believe the guy after him is trying to run faster because those 20-plus scouts are watching. So, Tyler, I don't think it could have gone any better. I imagine next year, better-wise, we'll have more of the 32 teams there. But it was an overall great look for the brand of HBCU sports at Jackson State University.
I love that photo of Coach Sanders, Coach McNair, and Coach Dancy. It was a little short video that you sent in. They were just laughing, talking about something. Because we don't get to see that a lot. I mean, we might see them kicking it around at media day, but to see them all on a football field and just that cooperation, knowing that it'll be competition, a few months from now, I really love that. That was great.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to talk with the three of them separately, and all of them were focused on their spring football. Valley and Alcorn, when we got to Pro Day, they were in their third day of practicing with pads and ran into spring break. So everybody is geared toward getting ready for spring ball and those summer two-a-days and for the fall season. And everybody's optimistic about what they bring to the table. I told Coach Dancy, I said, if not for Deion Sanders going undefeated, I'm standing here with Coach of the Year in Vincent Dancy, because he's done a hell of a job up there in Valley with limited number of scholarships. And he feels that his team is going to be better than they were this past fall. Same thing with Coach McNair. So those guys get it that we can work together and still compete on game day. But before that and after that, it's about the bigger brand. We're all in the same ocean. A rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah, man. Good times down in the SIP, man. Good times. What have you been catching up on? I know there was a spring break, and now the guys are back in spring practice there at Jackson State. What have you been noticing when you meander through there and take a peek at what's going on?
I tell you what I've noticed: the body changes. That our players have really embraced this off-season conditioning, strength and conditioning program. And you can just see in their physical makeup that guys are leaner or with more muscle. When they're out there working out, they're faster. And, coming off of that spring season last year rolling right into a summer, into the fall, the regular fall season, you didn't have a strength and conditioning program that you can implement. You know, it was the spring season time for that. Well, this is Jackson State's under Coach Prime's first true off season. And you're just getting a sense of what these guys are investing time-wise in their bodies, what they're also investing in the football classroom, because keep in mind, we have a new offensive coordinator and a new offense to install. So I'm just sitting back and watching those things, taking those notes, and looking forward to what will be a televised spring game on April 24th. But before that, on April 9th, there will be a public scrimmage as well. So those 2 dates, April 9th, we're going to get to see some things, but April 24th, that nationally televised first ever HBCU spring game is going down. And I think you're going to get to see some speed and strength that the Tigers have developed in the offseason.
All right, so we get the ESPNU spring game, late April. Then what? We're going to be off May, June, and at some point July the guys are back, or is it August? What's their timetable for the summer?
If it goes like last year, which is kind of an anomaly, they come back for some stuff late May, and it rolls into June. But by the time you get to July, it's really rolling. We're back in full swing football by then.
Man, this has really become 12 months. There's no month where there's not something happening in football now.
Yeah, college football has really gotten damn close to what you see in Major League Baseball. You have an off season around Christmas, you know, and after the holidays, they're right back getting ready for spring training. I know they had the little lockout this year in college and Major League Baseball that threw off the calendar a little bit, but it is a year-round sport. It is a year-round mentality. It's year-round conditioning, and those guys have embraced it, man. And looking forward, though, to having those bodies rested from impact, because that's something you didn't have this past fall. You know, you had a physical spring, somewhat of an off-season condition in the summer, right back to playing. But this year, they got some time to heal up, rest up, get stronger and faster. So I'm looking for an improved Tiger football team.
Heck, man, even at Christmas, not a lot happening practice-wise, but that early signing day, now that Jackson State and other, SWAC and HBCU members are players in the early signing day, I mean, it's...
Yeah, it's nonstop. There's breaking news weekly in college football, particularly in the HBCU landscape. Speaking
of, little birdies, they've been dropping by your windowsill. I've been seeing online, some 4-star, 5-star kids have JSU in their top 10. Everybody's, shouting out their offers. Is the Neely birdie going to be singing, not for public consumption, but, maybe shooting me a text or something anytime soon?
I would say the answer to that is yes. Do not be surprised where the J hat shows up this spring. I reference James Houston all the time because James Houston did not play spring ball at Jackson State. He was still at the University of Florida. He got to Jackson State in the summer, and look at the impact he had in one season. I believe that there are going to be more people to come like that, people that you were unaware of on National Signing Day or the early signing day period. But once people get through these spring balls at their respective institutions and really start to embrace that transfer portal, I think you're going to see some people land in Jackson State between April and summer school, and the needle is going to continue to point up. I will caution folks, because, this is still new to us to some degree, that portal door swings both ways. So you're going to have people coming to HBCUs, but you're going to have some current roster people leaving as well.
Yep, that does happen. That does happen. And that first year of it happening, you were like, huh, what happened? Why he leave? What's going on?
Yeah, what's wrong? There must be something in the locker room. Well, those coaches don't know what they're doing.
Right.
We had 3. Yeah, but you had 6 to come that were better than the 3 that left. We call that a win.
Yeah. It does. It takes time getting used to that new money, Neely. Like, it takes a little time. Like, sometimes that Ferrari needs an oil change. The rotors go bad. I don't know. I've never driven a Ferrari, but I imagine those are the problems people have. That's cool, man. That's cool. Look, man, we really appreciate it. You did an excellent job at Pro Day. You were all over the place. Coming off the trip down to BR, covering the ladies, you and Chuck. It was a crazy Saturday, Sunday, Monday, man. I'm just looking forward to more excitement coming out of Jackson, Mississippi.
And we will be here to provide it, man. We really appreciate the partnership with HBCU Game Day, taking what's happening at Jackson State to an even broader spectrum. I say it again, I say it again, I say it again. We have to stop looking for national networks and why they're not covering us, and invest with our clicks, our likes, our shares, and our subscription to those networks that are covering us. And whether it's Thee Pregame Show specifically covering Jackson State University, or HBCU Game Day, which covers the broader HBCU happenings in sports, we have enough gravitas that we don't have to go watch other things to get what's happening inside of our institutions.
Man, say that. I get in my feelings, Neely, when I see in, HBCU Sports Nation and all these other Facebook groups, people putting in links from SI and ESPN. I'm like, we got that story. The Pregame Show has that story. Put our link in there.
Well, I got to tell you, I get in my feelings about it as well, especially when the original link was ours.
Yeah.
When I is only duplicating a story from HBCU Game Day or the Pregame Show, and people choose to share that one instead of the original story.
I saw so many people, other media entities, writing articles from all the content you gathered at Country Prime. I did I have a Deion Sanders Google alert every day, just in case I missed something, in case Neely thought I knew. So every morning, I get this alert. And over the weekend, I was reading all these stories, and, they were citing the Pregame Show, and which is cool. That's great. That's how you do it. But I'm like, make sure you go back to the original. Like, it's uncut. It's unfiltered right there.
Yeah. Well, we're growing. We're growing. And, like you said, sometimes you get in your feelings, and that's natural. That's human. But we take it in stride because there's a bigger mission in place, and we're not resting where we are. So we're going to keep going. And as Coach Reed said, we're knocking on these walls, and they're starting to crack, Tyler. We're going to knock them down real soon.
All right, so make sure you follow those guys on all social media, the EE Pregame Show. I need clarification here. Is it lowercase g or uppercase G in game? What is the official correct way?
I have been lowercasing it just to keep the word count down, I guess, because every time I make it a big G, I get that red line under it saying this is incorrect. So I'm trusting the algorithm and the computers.
All right, so lowercase g, but pregame, all one word. I was typing something this weekend, and I was like, dang, is it little g? I was watching. I posted on Facebook something about LeBron when he passed the mailman this weekend, and I was like, dang, LeBron has been in the league 20 years, and I just now realized it's a capital B in LeBron. I was like, I've been messing that up for the last 20 years.
In the words of Houdini, when they so eloquently said, you can say what you want, just spell my name right.
Exactly, especially on that check, for real. All right, he is Neely, The Pregame Show. Make sure you subscribe to their content. All good stuff coming out of Jackson State University. Brother, appreciate it as always. We'll be talking to you soon, man.
Yes, sir.